James keeps his dribble somehow. Irving back to James. Oh, he throws it down. Irving and Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. LeBron James with the rejection.
For the latter half of the 20th century, and well into the 21st, the city of Cleveland and its sports teams were said to be cursed. After Jim Brown propelled the Browns to an NFL championship in 1964, Cleveland fell into a profound funk, going more than 5 decades without any of its professional sports franchises claiming a title. Now, were they actually cursed? Were they just bad, unlucky? Who's to say? Regardless, any story like this, in which a historic, humiliating championship drought is snapped, needs a hero, the chosen one, who could overcome the improbable odds and the weight of history to break the curse hanging over the city. And on June 19th, 2016, it finally happened. This is the story behind the 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavaliers, like many of Cleveland's sports franchises, had been the butt of the joke in the NBA for quite some time. Pretty much from the moment the league expanded to the Northern Ohio city in 1970, actually. The Cavs opened their inaugural season by losing their first 15 games, eventually finishing with a record of 15-67, and Cleveland didn't finish higher than 6th in the Eastern Conference in any of its first 5 seasons. Any modicum of success they did find during that period was immediately derailed by bad coaching decisions, questionable trades, and baffling draft choices. They struggled through multiple ownership changes through the 70s and 80s and suffered more than $15 million in financial losses due to poor attendance records. By 1983, things had gotten so bad that the then owner Ted Stepien threatened to move the team to Toronto. Obviously, that didn't happen, and instead, Stepien sold the team to George and Gordon Gund, and the franchise began to turn around. The late 80s and early 90s Cavs featured the emergence of all-stars like Mark Price, Larry Nance, Brad Daugherty, Ron Harper, who helped the Cavs to 8 playoff appearances in 9 seasons, including 1 Eastern Conference Finals trip in 1992. The 90s, however, weren't the best time for the Cavs or any Eastern Conference team to reach their peak because, well, Michael Jordan and his Chicago Bulls were oftentimes the main tormentors for those Cavaliers teams. I'm sure you all remember this.
Zellers has Jordan. Jordan with 2 seconds to go. Puts it up and scores at the buzzer. Michael Jordan has won it for Chicago.
Another teardown followed, and the franchise reverted back to its default state of mediocrity until, shortly after the turn of the century, fate intervened. As the Cavs floundered again, 40 miles south of Cleveland, in Akron, Ohio, a phenom who had already been on the cover of Sports Illustrated and seen his high school games at St. Vincent St. Mary's played on national television was getting ready to declare for the NBA draft as the undisputed number 1 overall pick. His name was LeBron James.
Oh my goodness. His head was about a foot over the rim. Oh! Look at the crowd!
Despite the immense amount of pressure on the teenager they called the chosen one, LeBron was everything and more for the Cavaliers, who took him first overall in the 2003 draft after finishing with the worst record in the NBA the year prior. Naturally, LeBron promptly won Rookie of the Year, led the Cavs to their first playoff appearance in 7 seasons just 2 years after he was drafted, and followed that up by dragging a mediocre roster through the 2007 Eastern Conference playoffs with countless historic performances, including scoring 29 of the Cavs' final 30 points in a pivotal Game 5 win against the Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals. Seriously, in just his 4th season in the league, at 22 years old, LeBron carried a Cavs roster that had Larry Hughes as its second leading scorer to the franchise's first NBA Finals berth. They were ultimately swept by the Spurs in 4 games, but LeBron had put the league on notice. The following season, LeBron led the league in scoring and became the Cavs' all-time leading scorer. The year after that, he claimed his first of consecutive MVP honors. But in true Cavs fashion, the franchise found a way to squander LeBron's next-level dominance. Management and ownership failed to put adequate rosters around James, and the Cavs didn't reach the finals again in the seasons following their 2007 run, even despite winning a franchise-best 66 games in the 2008-2009 season. And by the summer of 2010, when James had finally become an unrestricted free agent with the freedom to go wherever he wanted, he made the decision that shocked the basketball world.
In this fall, man, it's very tough. In this fall, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach and join the Miami Heat.
In an instant, LeBron, the chosen one, the Akron Hammer, the pride and joy of Ohio, immediately became public enemy number one in Cleveland.
I'm a big LeBron fan, and this is the worst thing that could have ever happened to me. And I just want to say that I hope that LeBron doesn't win a championship in Miami, and I hope we come back stronger next year, and we win the NBA championship. Always next.
It didn't help that Cavs owner Dan Gilbert penned this Comic Sans fonted letter to fans, promising that the Cavs would win their first title before LeBron won his first. Predictably, however, without their prodigal son, the Cavs once again became cellar dwellers in the NBA. Meanwhile, LeBron carried the Heat to 4 straight NBA Finals and a pair of championships, while the Cavs didn't even crack 35 wins in a season once following LeBron's departure. Those post-LeBron struggles came with silver linings though, including landing the number 1 overall pick in 2011, 2013, and 2014, where they drafted Kyrie Irving, Anthony Bennett, and Andrew Wiggins. While Bennett never panned out, Kyrie immediately emerged as one of the league's brightest young guards, winning All-Star Game MVP in 2014. Wiggins showed plenty of promise too. Then, in the summer of 2014, with LeBron's free agency looming, the Spurs beat James's Heat in 5 games in the NBA Finals, which immediately sparked rumors that James was looking to take his talents elsewhere once again. And for LeBron, just like Dorothy, there's no place like home. Not even 1 month after the Heat were bested by the Spurs, LeBron penned a letter to Cleveland sports fans in Sports Illustrated titled, "I'm coming home," and followed that up by signing a 3-year, $100 million deal to return to the Cavaliers. Cavs fans immediately hid their poorly burned LeBron jerseys and crude signage and quickly embraced the King's return to his home. So did the Cavs. They knew instantly that they would become contenders with James returning, which means they had to mold the roster into a championship contender. Specifically, they needed another piece to complement LeBron and Irving, who signed a contract extension himself not long after James announced his return. Enter Kevin Love. Since being drafted by the Minnesota Timberwolves in 2008, Love had turned himself into one of the premier big men in the league, but the Timberwolves had very little to show for it. Actually, they had nothing to show for it, not one single playoff appearance. By 2014, the rebounding machine was getting tired of wasting away in Minneapolis. Cleveland saw this as an opportunity and traded Bennett and Wiggins, along with Thaddeus Young and a $6.3 million trade exception in exchange for the Timberwolves' all-star big men. The Cavs now had a big three of Love, Irving, and James. Seemingly overnight, they had become the championship favorites. The 2014-2015 Cavaliers didn't look like a juggernaut out the gate. The front office had hired EuroLeague coach David Blatt prior to signing LeBron and trading for Love, and Blatt, suffice to say, wasn't necessarily James's first option to coach the team. The Cavs started 19-20 through 39 games, with Love in particular struggling to fit into his new role as the third option. And it didn't help that James was sending cryptic tweets directed at Love. It was a tough transition for the all-star big man. "My star dimmed a little bit to have to sacrifice," Love said according to The Athletic. "So at least just acknowledge it. All I wanted was a little bit of love. All I wanted was a pat on the back, an arm around the shoulder. I never got that. I think I just wanted a little bit of love. Not even notoriety, just an acknowledgement of, hey, listen, we know what you're sacrificing." That was not there in the first year. The Cavs had to shake things up. In January, they made 2 trades to strengthen their rotation. First, a 3-team deal that sent Dion Waiters to the Thunder in exchange for Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith from the Knicks, 2 wing players who could provide the Cavs with more spacing. Then, Cleveland traded 2 future first-round picks to the Nuggets in exchange for big man Timofey Mozgov. It worked. With a fortified supporting cast, the Cavs went 34-9 the rest of the way, finishing with the second-best record in the Eastern Conference. They were pitted against a young and tough Boston Celtics team in the first round of the playoffs. As it turned out, the Celtics were no match for the Cavs, who swept Boston in 4 games, but the series took a toll on Cleveland.
Olynyk and Love fighting for it, and this is going to be cool. Did Love hurt? Did Love hurt himself?
Yes, he did.
His shoulder popped out.
Yeah, he ran right past
He's going right to the locker room. I think his shoulder popped out, so a big moment here as Kevin Love's shoulder popped out as he was battling with Olynyk, and he raced right to the locker room.
In a huge blow for the Cavs' title chances, Love was ruled out for the rest of the playoffs with a dislocated shoulder after Cleveland's Game 4 sweep. In the East semis, they dispatched the Bulls in 6 games thanks to some late-game heroics from LeBron in Game 4 that staved off a 3-1 deficit.
1.5 remaining. James for the win. It's good. LeBron James at the buzzer stuns the Chicago Bulls, and the series is tied at 2 games apiece.
After the game, James said that he ignored Blatt's play call in the huddle and said, "Just give me the ball," which clearly, by the way, worked. The Cavs then swept the Atlanta Hawks, who held the #1 seed after a franchise-best 60-win season. Awaiting them in the finals was Steph Curry, coming off a unanimous MVP season, Klay Thompson, defensive stopper Draymond Green, and the 67-win Golden State Warriors. Despite not having Love, the Cavs were still primed to put up a good fight against the juggernaut Warriors, until this happened in overtime of Game 1.
Irving falls down, hangs on, gets it to J.R. Smith. Can't hit the three. Green with another rebound. And Kyrie Irving is hurt, limping up the floor.
Irving had fractured his kneecap on the play, ruling him out for the rest of the series. No Love, no Kyrie, just LeBron shouldering the load for the Cavaliers once again. The Cavs miraculously pushed the Warriors to 6 games, thanks in part to contributions from unlikely players like Matthew Dellavedova and Mozgov. But in the end, the Warriors won their first championship in 40 years. Andre Iguodala won Finals MVP for successfully containing James for 6 games. Cleveland's curse continued to linger. The Cavs started the 2015-2016 season like a team on a mission, going 30-11 before firing Blatt and naming assistant Ty Lue as interim head coach for the year. The Cavs cited a handful of reasons for the changeup, though GM David Griffin pointedly said it was because Blatt hadn't connected with the locker room. Few were surprised by the move. LeBron had never signed on to be coached by Blatt and was much closer to Lue, who is 18 years Blatt's junior. And the king gets what the king wants. Following the coaching change, the Cavs continued to rise, ultimately winning 57 games on their way to the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. In the playoffs, they continued to dominate, sweeping the Pistons in round 1 and then the Hawks in round 2. The Raptors did give them a little bit more trouble in the Eastern Conference Finals, forcing the Cavs to 6 games, but LeBron wasn't going to let Bismack Biyombo stop him from getting another shot at an NBA title. The Cavs returned to the NBA Finals, but this time fully healthy, ready for a rematch against the Warriors. This, however, was a different Golden State team than the one that had defeated LeBron the year prior. The Warriors had spent the regular season absolutely dominating, winning 28 games in a row to top James's Heat record of 27 wins in a row, on their way to 73 wins, the most in NBA history. Curry had once again won MVP in the regular season, and in the playoffs, the Warriors miraculously pulled off an improbable 3-1 comeback versus Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and the Oklahoma City Thunder in the Western Conference Finals to advance to their second straight NBA Finals. By all accounts, this was primed to be one of the best finals matchups in NBA history, and it did not disappoint.
Finals, the rematch from last year, Warriors and Cavaliers, best of 7 to decide an NBA champion.
The Warriors took Game 1 thanks to a 29-2 run in the third quarter and a playoff career high 20 points off the bench from Sean Livingston. Game 2, the Warriors really flexed their muscle, beating the Cavaliers by 33 points, with Draymond leading the charge with 28 points, including 5 threes. Oh, also, Kevin Love left the game after suffering a head injury while trying to grab a rebound. 2-0 Warriors. Love sat out Game 3 with a concussion, but that didn't matter all that much. The Cavs took revenge at home. LeBron and Kyrie combined for 62 points in a 30-point win for the Cavs. Game 4 was an opportunity for the Cavs to tie the series before heading back to Oakland, but it turned out to be the Steph Curry show.
To Thompson. Thompson out to Curry. Three-pointer. Puts it in. Golden State up 3 on an 11-point turnaround here in the third, as Curry now has 23.
He finished the game with 38 points, including 7 threes, as the Warriors squeaked in what was the closest final score of the series so far, an 11-point win. The Warriors were 1 win away from finishing the greatest season in NBA history with a cherry on top. The win came at a cost for the Warriors, though. Green and James had to be separated in the closing minutes of Game 4 because Green had fell onto the ground and James stepped over him. Feeling disrespected, Green appeared to swing his arm and make contact with James and the Granddads. Because of the altercation, Green was handed a flagrant one for the play, which usually wouldn't be an issue, but since it was Green's 4th flagrant foul of the playoffs, he was controversially suspended for Game 5. Without Green, the Cavs dominated in Game 5 in Oakland, with James and Irving becoming the first teammates in finals history to both score 40-plus points in the same game. Golden State's series lead shrinks to 3-2. It was also announced after the game that Warriors big man Andrew Bogut has suffered a season-ending knee injury in the second half. The Cavs, who for the second season in a row had their title hopes on life support, now had a chance to tie the series in Cleveland. LeBron wasn't going to waste that opportunity.
And here in this city, they're saying this is the biggest game in franchise history and one of the biggest nights in the city's sports history as they try to keep alive their dream of bringing a championship to the city of Cleveland.
These are the type of performances that you look back on and realize that there is absolutely nothing the opposing team could have done to stop the best player in the league. In Game 6, LeBron scored 18 straight points for the Cavs from the end of the third quarter to the 7-minute mark in the fourth. LeBron was doing everything, including frustrating Curry.
Here in Cleveland, Curry blocked by James.
Curry actually ended up fouling out of the game, becoming the first MVP to foul out of a finals game since Shaq in 2000. And Curry was not happy about it.
And a foul on Curry, and Curry's going to get it with a technical. He throws his mouthpiece after fouling out of the game.
The Cavs had tied the series at 3 apiece, thanks to 41 points, 11 assists, 8 rebounds, 4 steals, and 3 blocks from the King.
Oracle Arena is alive and roaring as we get set for Game 7.
Game 7 was an all-timer. There were 20 lead changes and 11 ties. With 4 minutes and 26 seconds left in the game, the score was tied at 89 apiece. Defensively, neither side was letting anything past them. In fact, only 4 more combined points would be scored for the rest of the game. With 2 minutes left, the Warriors were presented with an opportunity to grab the upper hand off a missed Irving layup. What happened next is truly one of the most incredible moments of athleticism we've ever witnessed in the NBA. The play-by-play call is something that many people can recite to this very day, possibly the greatest block of all time.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. LeBron James with the rejection.
Just under 1 minute later, still tied at 89, it was now Irving's turn for the heroics.
Irving and Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. And the Cavaliers by 3.
The Warriors immediately called a timeout and drew up a play for their MVP to respond. They even got their preferred matchup, getting the slower Love to switch out onto Curry. But in what was the biggest defensive stop of his career, Love forced Curry into a contested three-pointer that rimmed out. On the other end, LeBron was fouled on a dunk attempt and made one of his 2 free throws, putting the Cavs up 4 with under 10 seconds left to play, effectively sealing the title.
It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
The city of Cleveland had won its first professional sports championship in 52 years. Fittingly, the hometown kid was named Finals MVP. It was something out of a Hollywood movie.
I set out a goal 2 years when I came back to bring a championship to this city. I gave everything that I had. I poured my heart, my blood, my sweat, my tears to this game, and Cleveland, this is for you.
2016 wasn't the end of the Warriors-Cavs battles, though. The Warriors blowing a 3-1 series lead is actually what pushed them to recruit Kevin Durant in the offseason, which gave Golden State the upper hand and resulted in 2 lopsided finals wins for the Warriors over the Cavs in 2017 and 2018. Kyrie was traded midway through the 2018 campaign after his relationship with LeBron broke down, and James also tested out new waters, signing with the Lakers in the summer of 2018. But none of that mattered. The Cavaliers, after 40-plus years of mediocrity or worse, had finally reached the mountaintop of the sport. The half-a-century-long curse was finally lifted in Cleveland, and it was the kid who grew up 50 minutes away from the arena that helped them exorcise their demons. Now, you can't write a better story than that. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button.